And welcome to another Detroit Lions news podcast. I'm your host, Joe Chap. We're going to be talking about the Chicago Bears versus the Detroit Lions. And you know what? Thanksgiving week is always the most annoying week of the year. It feels like this week just for Thanksgiving. It feels like it just, I can't imagine for the players. Like the players must be like, bro, we just played Sunday. Why do we got to play Thursday? It is what it is. But Thanksgiving is craziness. And if you got a crazy family, you know as well. If you got a crazy aunt, crazy mother-in-law, you know it's all good. We're gonna make it through. Now, a lot of people in this Thanksgiving are gonna be like, please just bless me with a Lions win. Just bless me with the Lions win. Like you might go to Wednesday night mass tomorrow. You know, a lot of people do that. You might go to Wednesday night mass and you might just go pray for the Lions to win on Thanksgiving. But what if I told you you don't really need to do that? What if I told you the Detroit Lions are in a good spot to win this game? What if I told you that the Detroit Lions are going to win this game? Now, I don't like to be bashful and brash and everything like that. I will just say this: there's a lot of variables to why the Detroit Lions are going to win on Thursday. Now, if you're new to the channel, I'm usually not this brash. I'm usually kind of calm. But when you talk about the Detroit Lions and you talk about what they do correctly, it's pretty clear what the Detroit Lions do correctly. So we're gonna have a lot of fun on this podcast. We got a lot of stuff to get to. We're gonna break down the offenses, the defenses. We're gonna break down some of the hidden statistics. Obviously, we're gonna go over the injury report. The injury report's gonna be interesting because you don't really know who's going to be a game time decision, who's going to be up until game time. It's going to be very, very interesting to see who could potentially be playing, who's not going to be playing. What is the verdict there? St. Brown came out today, said that he's going to play on Thursday. It'll be very, very interesting to see what happens from there. All right, let's get to the first segment. Not the first segment, but let's get to the main deal. Okay. So here's the thing. I was looking up stats. I thought this was the most interesting stat of the whole thing. So here you go with the Chicago Bears. So a lot of people talk about the Chicago Bears and they talk about how the Chicago Bears they're starting to come on. They're starting to come on. They're starting to come on. There's a difference for that. Bear down on the road. Chicago Bears on the road. They're 0-4. They've given up 19 sacks. 4 of the 5 interceptions have been on the road for Caleb Williams. And when you just think about what they've dealt with on the road, they lost to the Titans on the road. They lost to the Colts on the road. They lost to the Patriots on the road. They lost to the Texans on the road. There's some games that they lost that were, I think there was one game I'm forgetting that was against a good team. But nevertheless, they have lost some games that they should not lose. And when you talk about the Chicago Bears and you talk about what do they do right? What do they do right? Being good on the road is one thing. Being good on the road in a short week is another thing. When you talk about being good on the road, it's like Detroit. Detroit's a good team on the road. They're undefeated on the road. When you're a good team on the road, you can deal with it. The going on the road on a Thursday afternoon, very rough. For Chicago, this is a Thursday afternoon. They're going to be on the road. They played Sunday games, but they haven't played a Thursday afternoon game. It's a lot different. And I don't think Caleb Williams in his career, if I go back over his career, he's never played a Thursday night game. He's played, I think he's played a one or two. I think it was at Oklahoma or something like that. He's played one or two, but it was in college. But Thursday afternoon is a whole nother animal. You talk about your body clock being different. You talk about this. And usually the team that's the home team should have the advantage. I don't know why Detroit hasn't been able to win lately, but I think the right team is coming into Detroit to kind of give them a little bit of an even keel thing. And let's look at Caleb Williams right now. So this is a very interesting stat right here. So after recording an average time of throw of 2.9 seconds to start the season, Caleb Williams averaged a 2.42 second time to throw since week 11, including his two quickest average time to throws of the season. Williams completed 77% of his passes for 937 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions when thrown under 2.5 seconds this season, compared to a 51.7% completion percentage for 1,419 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions when taken over 2.5 seconds to throw. The matchup here is the Lions defense has allowed just 66.7 of the quick passes to be completed this season, the lowest rate in the NFL. The Lions have also generated a 55.3 defensive success rate against quick passes this season. That's the fourth highest in the NFL. So here's the thing. When you look at the Chicago team, you look at their road record, they're 0-4. You look at them having trouble on the road, whether it be a rookie quarterback, whether it be Matt Eberflus being a total incompetent bum, whatever the case may be, they struggle on the road. It's clear as day. The offense is just kind of stagnant. They average 200 yards on the road a game, which is absolutely phenomenal. That's wild to me. You ever notice have you ever seen a team average 200 yards on the road? I mean, we're talking about all-time bad. 200 yards on the road. That tells me two things. Two or three things. It tells me one, you have terrible communication on the road. It tells me two, you either have a rookie quarterback, which the Chicago Bears do, or you have a rookie team. They have mostly a veteran team. You think about Keenan Allen, you think about DJ Moore, you think about DeAndre Swift. They have like an older nucleus, but all in all, like they average 200 yards on the road, which is insane to think. Like you're thinking, like there's no way. There is a way. I think the best game they had on the road was against the Commanders, where they lost on that Hail Mary, which was absolutely phenomenal. Hopefully, Tyreek Stevenson is like yelling at the fans in Detroit. That'd be great. We'll say hi. Anyways, but you look at them on the road, Chicago, they're 0-4. And if you look at it here, I'll bring it up for people that didn't see it. They're 0-4 on the road. 19 sacks allowed. 4 of 5 interceptions are on the road for the Chicago Bears. And when you talk about things that actually do matter, when you come into Detroit, it is a very tough place to play. As a rookie, it's probably going to be the toughest place that Caleb Williams has ever played in his life. It is probably going to be the toughest place that he's ever played in his life. You can go back to Oklahoma. You can go back to USC. I don't think he's going to play in a tougher environment that he's playing in than he is going to be playing in Thursday against the Detroit Lions. And it's not just tooting my own horn. It's not tooting the fans' horn. It's a rough environment to play in Detroit. You know, I got the chance to talk to someone who played in Detroit. They played with the Seattle Seahawks the last 2 years, and now they're retired. But he told me one thing, and I remember it verbatim. He said that if he was to go to if you gave him a choice of Detroit, Green Bay, Chicago, or Minnesota, where's the two places that he would not want to go? He named Minnesota because they are sicko fans over there, so they're kind of sicko fans. Let's be honest, they're kind of sick in the head. But he also named Detroit. He said Detroit's number 1 on my list in the whole entire NFL. He said it's so hard playing in Detroit because you're on silent count and the fans are rabid. They're just loud as shit. He said it's like kind of like when we played in Seattle. Like they're just loud. They're like the 12s no matter what. And this is a guy who played at a very, very prestigious college in the SEC. He said it's louder than some of that. So it just goes to show you like the Detroit Lions have a pure home field advantage. And when you talk about the Chicago Bears coming in here, who have not won a road game all year long, 19 sacks on the road. They have 4 or 5 of their interceptions are on the road. It brings up a good chance for the Detroit Lions to actually play some ball and actually win this game. And I think that they are going to win this game. All the statistics, they kind of bear it out, but we're going to get to more of those statistics in a minute. But When you look at this Bears offense, it's not really high powered. It's really not. So we're gonna break down the Bears offense here right now. But it's just this is a good chance for the Detroit Lions to actually win this game right here. And it'll be interesting to see what happens uh going into um this game, seeing who's available and everything like that. So let's transition to the offense. Offensively, we're gonna go to the Chicago Bears offense. Now, this is what I want you to know about the Chicago Bears offense. There's a lot of new faces on that team. Obviously, we know one face. He's very familiar with us. It's DeAndre Swift, the running back for the Chicago Bears. And DeAndre is having a pretty good season with the Chicago Bears, if we're going to be totally honest with ourselves. He's got it's not the best season, but he's averaging 3.9 yards per carry. He's got 5 TDs. It's amazing he has no fumbles. If you ever remembered, DeAndre Swift would always fumble the ball. I don't know what it was, but he would always fumble the ball in crucial times too. 168 carries, 665 yards, 3.96 per carry, 5 touchdowns, and no fumbles. So it's going to be interesting to see that. When you compare him to, Jahmyr Gibbs, it's not even a clear comparison. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is 2.2 yards over DeAndre Swift's average yardage total, and DeAndre Swift has ran the ball more than Jahmyr Gibbs. He's ran about 20 more times, and Jahmyr Gibbs has more of the production, touchdowns, and everything. Here's one thing you gotta know about the Chicago Bears offense. Offensively, their offense is very susceptible. When you look at their team in totality, I'm gonna bring this up, but um, when you look at this team, I'm gonna bring it up right here. But when you look at this Bears team, overwhelmingly, they have issues. They have issues pass blocking. I know, and you know what's it's funny because I love Pro Football Focus, and Pro Football Focus, they always bring up some garbage. They always have some garbage up there. 74.7 pass block grade for the team. And then their run block is 67.3, which makes no sense. They've been pretty good. They've kept Caleb Williams clean because of the short passes. So a lot of people look at the sack total and they go, okay, well, obviously Caleb Williams was holding on to the ball early in his starting thing, but the past couple games, especially last like 3 or 4, they've been playing better. But you got to understand one thing: when we go look at the Chicago schedule, they haven't played on the road since the Commander game, if I'm correct. No, they haven't played on the road since the Arizona game, which they lost 29-9. They lost the Commander game 18-15. They lost against the Colts. They lost against the Texans. So this is going to be their first away game in about 3 weeks. And they went to a hard place in Arizona. They struggled there. In Arizona, they really struggled to play well. Caleb Williams was 22 for 41, 217 yards. He didn't have any touchdowns, no interceptions, but he was just non-existent. DeAndre Swift had 51 yards, 16 carries. This is what I'm talking about. When I was talking earlier about the Bears offense on the road, it's a completely different offense because if you look at their total yards, they only had 241 total yards. They had 172 passing yards and had 69 rushing yards. They were 3 for 14 on third down. And when you think about leading time of possession and you still don't get over 300 total yards, that tells me everything I need to know about this Bears team. So they're going to come into a snake pit with the Detroit Lions, and they're going to try to make things happen. I mean, look, Caleb Williams has had a decent rookie year. I think a lot of people overshadowed what he was supposed to do. They were like, "Oh, this kid's gonna be freaking phenomenal. He's a generational talent." Whenever you watched Caleb Williams at USC, He came away with two things. One, he holds onto the ball way too much. Way too much. Way too much. The second part about the Caleb Williams game is sometimes he likes to play 300. And if you've ever played the game 300 with any of your neighborhood friends, you watch someone throw it up and it's like just like gopher ball. Like someone's gonna catch it. That's exactly what Caleb Williams does, and he's had a pretensive he's been susceptible to those. Now I will give the Chicago Bears coaching staff a lot of credit. They have held him very in check in terms of being an aggressive, being a total gunslinger liability, especially with those kind of passes. They've cut him down a lot, especially since the beginning of the year. I think being at home the last 3 weeks has kind of gave him a little bit of a comfort, a little bit of a confidence. But he's going to go into Detroit, and it's going to be a totally different scenario. I mean, you're talking about one of the things that's going to be the most interesting thing for Caleb Williams to do in Detroit. He's going to have to call protections. He's going to have to do it all on a silent count, which is very, very difficult because we see quarterbacks that have had they're veterans. You know, we've seen Matthew Stafford in here, Baker Mayfield in here. We've seen, you know, guys like that where they are just like Geno Smith, guys that are like legitimate. They've been here for a while in the NFL. They struggle with silent count. And it's not something that you could just as a rookie, it's not something that you just come up with. And you could practice it all you want during the week and saying like, "Oh, we're going to put the speakers on blast," and it's just not going to happen. Like you could do that all you want, but it comes down to two things. Are you going to do it? So that will be the interesting thing here. All right. Let's get to this statistic right here. This is the offense per game. Obviously, the Bears are averaging 326 yards total yards per game. They're 24th in the NFL. Total yards for the Detroit Lions, 409. That's second in the NFL. 187 passing yards for the Bears. That's 29th in the NFL. Detroit's obviously sixth in the NFL with 243.5. You look at the Bears rushing statistics, 22nd in the NFL. It's not going to get it done. Obviously, they've done really, really well in certain places, but they're going to really struggle in Detroit, especially with this run defense, who has held some pretty good running backs in check. At 111 yards, 0.8, that's what they average on the ground in Chicago. They average 20.1 points per game. That's tied for 22nd in the league. Detroit averages 32.7. That's first in the league. 32.3 on third down. That's 29th in the league. And Detroit is 46.8. That's fourth in the league on third down. So, look, I've said all I could say. You know, Chicago is coming here. Their offense kind of sputters. As you see right here, they're not good at anything. They're really not good at anything. Like, I know the Lions might be missing Carlton Davis. I know they might be missing, you know, they might rely on Kindle Vildor again. But the reality of the situation is this. This is going to be a difficult game for Caleb Williams on multiple fronts because of the defense that he's going to be going against, because of the crowd that he's going to be going against. And if we want to be completely honest, I can't remember. When I looked on the schedule, I can't remember him playing in a more hard place to play. Is Washington a hard place to play? Is Indy a hard place to play? Is Tennessee really a hard place to play? No. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Caleb Williams does in this game. Obviously, he's gotten a lot better. He's became a more polished product. He's a, you know, everyone calls him the generational product. He's going to be that guy. All right, we'll see what happens, but it is what it is, and we'll see what Chicago does. So let me go and let's get some comments in here. There's a lot of people that are commenting. Let's see. We got Go Lions, roasted Bears on the menu for Thursday. Bears, that's pretty good. That's pretty good stuff. Hopefully we could roast the Bears. That's what I'm talking about. Jordan says Swift still doesn't get a win on Thanksgiving at home field. Board field. Yeah, it's going to be a rough one for the Chicago Bears, in my opinion. That's what I think. I think that it's going to be really, really tough for the Chicago Bears. Just stay healthy and they will win. We will rejoice, but we do not need another injury. Yeah, you know what, Leo, you bring up a great point because you look at the injury report here, and you look at it and you go, okay, Carlton Davis not practicing today. Taylor Ducker didn't practice today. These are estimations. We don't really know who's practicing because it's a walkthrough. Khalif Raymond, which we heard from Dan Campbell earlier, that this is a guy who potentially can miss some time. You like to see Dave Montgomery and Amon-Ra St. Brown with limited practice. Terrion Arnold is a full practice. DJ Reader is a full practice. Those are good things. And then when you heard St. Brown say this, he said, I feel good. Lions Amon-Ra St. Brown on his status for Thursday versus the Bears. So you're starting to see people, they're starting to get in the groove of things. It's going to be interesting the way what the designations are on Thursday. Look, there's a lot of um there's a short period of time in between some of these games, man. And it sucks. It really does. It really sucks. And you're hoping um these guys could stay healthy because you really need them. You look at the next two games after this, you got Green Bay, you got Buffalo. Like those are two tough games, like if you really want to put it that way. But Buffalo's a tough team. I I'll give you guys a little nugget right here. I will give you a little nugget. I've heard from multiple people that are in ESPN. Potentially, the Buffalo Bills game could be moved to Monday Night Football. Potentially. It's not clear right now because the networks are still fighting over it. But it seems like ESPN really wants that game, and they're willing to scratch anybody who is there. Now, I didn't really see who was there, but that's the kind of the group that they could do that flex scheduling. I think they have to do it 2 weeks before. So we will know the verdict on that in a couple of days, but it'll be interesting to see what happens from there. All right, let's get to some more comments. Just stay healthy and they will win, rejoice, but we do not need another injury. Leo says Chicago will be a great team next year. I agree with you, Leo, a lot. Leo says, but this year belongs to the Lions Villain Squad. Yep, we are broadcasting on the Villain Squad page. I appreciate Russ for everything that he does. Obviously we have a little partnership, so it's always great to talk. And you could go to my page at Detroit Lions News Podcast too. Dwayne says, "Let's go Detroit Lions." Spirit of Detroit says, "What's up, King? What's up, my man? And you got to come on sometime. You really do. Hopefully next week we can do something." Leo says Chicago is going to give it all, but we need to stay healthy. So hopefully, the Lions definitely do need to stay healthy for sure. Dwayne says we will need to be focused, ready to play hard, smart on both sides of the ball, keep the foot on the gas pedal for the entire game till the clock hits zeros. Ken Fisher says Lions 31, Bears 13 defensively, Lions 4 sack, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery. My prediction. Your prediction is really in line with what the Chicago Bears are really giving up, on the road. So it'll be interesting. Leo tells Ken to put some money on that wager. You know what? If you could put the money on a wager, we'll have some wagers that you can put your money on. Ken says the Chicago Bears will be lucky to win another game. Look at their schedule. Yeah, I've looked at their schedule, Ken, and this is a brutal schedule because I was looking at it, I was very shocked because the first portion of their schedule was really not that difficult. I mean, you talk about the Chicago Bears. I mean, they played the Titans, they played the Colts, they played the Rams at home, they played the Panthers, the Jags, the Commanders, the Cardinals, the Patriots, and then they played obviously the Packers, Vikings, the Lions. This is a tough part of their schedule. But then they go play the 49ers who are battling for a playoff spot. They go on the road to play the Vikings. They play the Lions again. They play the Seahawks. They go to Lambeau and play the Packers. So that is a very, very difficult schedule for the Chicago Bears. And when you think about the Chicago Bears and how many people were hyping them up to win the NFC North, that was a quick flop, and it really didn't take much from there. Um, Leo says, "I know we have a rough schedule compared to Green Bay. That sucks." Well, all right, let's look at the Green Bay schedule. So I know Leo just said that. Let's look at the Green Bay schedule. I think it's a sneaky tough schedule here. So they play the Dolphins this week. I think that could be a sneaky game, especially with Tua coming back. They play the Lions on Thursday Night Football, which that's going to be a sneaky tough game, but they're going to have a week to prepare. Then they go on the road to play another night game. That's a that's a Sunday Night Football game against Seattle. So they will go on the road to play Seattle, which is interesting. That would be the game that you could potentially flex out for the Bills game. Interesting. They play the Saints, which that's going to be an easy game, and then they play the Vikings at Minnesota, and then they play the Chicago Bears at home at Lambeau. So yeah, I mean this. I think their schedule is sneaky tough. I will tell you that. I'm not going to say that it's great by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think it's pretty sneaky tough. So we'll see what happens. Let's see what we have. Um, I don't like that they put Amra St. Brown on for returning. Well, let's address that. So a lot of people are confused. They're wondering why Dan Campbell's putting Amra St. Brown back as a returner. I don't think I think that was a one time thing. Obviously, today Dan Campbell came out and he said, "Look, I might put him back there again." Obviously, he's being sarcastic. We all know that, but there's very limited people on the team that could really return punts. It's such a crucial part of the game, and you would hate to lose a game because you put someone back there who is not sure-handed, that can't make some difficult catches, because we see it all the time in football. The punt returner is a very underrated position in the game of football. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the underrated part of the game, which is the punt returner. Obviously, when you talk about Cleve Raymond being missing, it sucks because Cleve Raymond is a very, very good punt returner, and he's been a very good player for the Detroit Lions this year, and obviously with the punt returns that he's had. But do I think St. Brown's going to be doing the punt returns? No, I think they're going to find someone else. It's just getting someone back there that you really trust, because at any point in time, if you get someone back there you don't fully trust and they make a mistake, it's giving the ball away. It's basically as good as a turnover, and if you don't recover it, it's a turnover, and it's basically going to be 7 that's going to end up in your back end. Even with a good defense like Detroit has been, it's still going to be a tough one. Ken asks, Dorsey, I believe, could return punts. He doesn't he do kickoffs, Raymond? Kickoffs and punts are entirely two different things. It's weird because you ask someone who, because I asked someone today, I go, look, what's the difference between a kick return and a punt return? He says the punt return is a little bit higher, and so you really have to get under it. And if you don't get under it fully, you can just let it slip. A kick return, they're not really coming that hard. I mean, you're gonna have a good chance to get away, or you're usually starting in the end zone. You got a clear vision. Punt return, it's hanging high, and you're usually fixated on the ball. And when the ball is coming, there's players coming at you. So if you don't do the whole fair catch, it's gonna come at you. They're gonna come at you and they're gonna try to hit you, and that's different from kickoff. Kick return where you're gonna catch the ball and then you're gonna run, and there's usually a lot of one to run. I heard a rumor they were getting a punt return. I forgot where I saw it. Well, if they do, that'd be great. It depends on how bad Cleve Raymond's hurt. If they do get a punt returner, that tells you how bad Cleve is hurt. So that'll be interesting right there. Maybe maybe he uses Bates for returns. Yeah, Jake Bates can lay bricks and return kicks and kick some bricks through the field goal post. That's for sure. All right, let's get to the defense. I want to bring up the defense really quick because I think this is the most important part of the game for both sides of the equation. Where is it? Um, So when you look at these two defenses, it's a polar opposite. Obviously 355 they're giving up for the Bears defense. That's 17th in the league. Detroit's 337.5. That's 11th in the league. Detroit's passing defense is 25th in the league compared to 13th for the Chicago Bears at 209.3. 129.7, 20th. That's 20th in the league for Chicago Bears. Detroit doesn't allow teams to really run. So 94.9, it's fifth in the NFL for rushing yards against. Points, Detroit's second in the league. The Bears are eighth in the league. Third down percentage, Detroit is first, and the Chicago Bears are sixth. Now, the one thing that you can look at with the Chicago Bears is it's very, very simple on what the Chicago Bears have an issue with. The Chicago Bears have an issue with defending the run. Ever since Andrew Billings went out, they've struggled in the run defense portion of their game. And it's not no fault of them. Eberflus is a good defensive coordinator, but reality of the situation is you're talking about the Detroit Lions, who have a great rushing defense. Great rushing offense. And when they're going to go against Chicago, they can really run the ball on anyone. Like anyone, they can run the ball on. Jahmyr Gibbs is averaging 5.8 yards per touch. Montgomery is having a hell of a year. But either way, whoever Detroit puts in the game, they're a threat to get it in the reception category, get it in the rushing category. Jahmyr Gibbs is a problem. He's a very big problem in terms of for the Chicago Bears, for any team in general. Jahmyr Gibbs is a huge problem. So this is a stat on Goff right here. It says Jared Goff has totaled league highs in completion percentage, 74.5, and yards 1,809 against single high safety coverage this season, while ranking second in yards per attempt at 9.4. Goff has also generated a league high plus 49.6 EPA on such high dropbacks, good for plus 24 EPA per dropback, most in the NFL. Matchup, the Bears defense has deployed single high safety coverage at the fifth highest rate this season at 60.5, but have allowed the 10th most yards per attempt, 7.8 when doing so. So when you look at that statistic and you're thinking, okay, where do the Detroit Lions have on offense? Where does their offense really against the Chicago Bears defense? Where can it get them? And when they do that single high safety for the Chicago Bears, it really opens up an opportunity for Jared Goff. And Jared Goff is a very good quarterback. As the statistics show, with single high safety, he's a very good passer. His yards per attempt is 9.4 per attempt. His EPA, which is an analytic that is analytic. It's incredible. Plus 49.6 on such dropbacks, and good for plus 0.24 on EPA per dropback, most in the NFL. So you look at the statistic and you go, what do the Detroit Lions do well? How can they take advantage of the Chicago Bears defense? And it's very simple. The Bears defense is solid all around. Fortunately for Detroit has an elite offense. Even if Taylor Decker cannot go, you're still going to have a really good offensive line that can get off the ball. And I just think that, look, Detroit's going to be at home. They got every opportunity to make things happen. Obviously, we know the Bears defense is solid all the way around, but there's matchup advantages for the Detroit Lions. We talk about the matchup advantage for the single high safeties for Jared Goff. When we talk about the run game, with Andrew Billings out, they've struggled in the run defense department. I think at one point, if I go back, they were averaging like 150, 160 a game up until I don't know how many yards that Aaron Jones had. I had him in fantasy. I don't know. Let me check this real quick, guys. I gotta check this real quick. Okay, so the Chicago Bears in the last game, they gave up against the Minnesota Vikings. They gave up 124 yards rushing, which is not bad. Packers, Josh Jacobs, who I compare more to Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery, They had 179 yards rushing. I think that's mm, no, it was Chicago that had 109. All right. They've struggled in the rushing department in terms of stopping the run. So when you look at the Detroit Lions and what they can really do to help really do for the Chicago Bears is they're very tough to play against. Chicago is going to be very tough to play against, but it ultimately it comes down to two things. Can Detroit run the ball? If they can, it's going to open up the pass. And it's going to open single high safeties. And once that happens, it's going to be game over because Chicago really has been trying to figure out why their rush defense has been so leaky. Unfortunately for them, they have struggled in that department, and it hasn't been good for them. So this will be an interesting game from the offensive standpoint because when you think about the offensive standpoint for the Detroit Lions, it's very, very critical that they do what they do because like Detroit's really good at just running the ball. And there's a stat that we have. This was from last week. This was the Lions offense has recorded the highest rush success rate, 47.3% on design runs this season, having allowed ball carriers to be contacted behind the line of scrimmage at the fourth lowest rate. You got to think that a team like Chicago, they're not going to get behind the line of scrimmage to, stop the Detroit Lions behind the track. So if the Detroit Lions can just stay, within third and like two, third and three. If they're doing that all game, Detroit's going to win this game because their offense is too much for Chicago. And we looked at Chicago's offense, and Chicago's offense is not that good, guys. Right here, Chicago's offense is not that good. They're averaging 20 points per game. If you just stick to your average of 32.7 per game, you're gonna whoop the shit out of the Bears because the Bears have shown an ability. Their highest scoring game all year, if we look at it, they scored 27 last week. That was their highest scoring game of the year. They scored 24 against the Titans, 24 against the Rams. Oh, my bad. They scored 36 against the Carolina Panthers. Like, you want to give them a effing cookie? Go ahead. They scored 35 against the Jaguars. Okay, that wasn't easy. Those two games are freaking easy. They scored 20. They scored 9 against Cardinals, 3 against the Patriots, 19 against the Packers, and 27 against the Vikings. So, look, if you could just hold them to their average points, they're not going to win. Your offense is too good to really get stopped, and they struggle stopping the run since Andrew Billings got injured. They have not been the same rushing defense that they've been before. So it's going to be very interesting to see. If I'm Ben Johnson, let's run the ball. Let's establish the run, and let's keep it going. And let's get to some comments right now. Let's see. Ken Fisher, just have them fair. This is about the punt returns. Just have them fair catch all the time. That's the problem. Fair catching it is a very interesting part of the game because you still have to catch it. Some people get spooked out. Leo says, I hope Laporta gets out of his funk. You know what? It's very interesting that you say that, Leo, because Laporta needs to get out of his funk. Because I'm not going to be selfish that I have him on my fantasy team, but I will be selfish that the Detroit Lions do need him down the stretch, and they're going to need him. And whatever is happening with Goff and Laporta this year, I mean, it just seems like they're not on the same page in any stretch of the imagination. Sometimes it looks like they're just like totally off kiltered. It's unbelievable, to be honest, but that's what it seems like with these two guys. Didn't Tom Kennedy return punts last year, bring them off the practice squad? Motown Mitch says, "What up, though? Lions rule, Bears rule." That's a great one. I love that. Love that. What up, Mitch? Uh, Leo says, "Ken, good call." And then Dwayne says, The ground will have a great game. Sonic and Knuckles, maybe Faki. You know what? That's one person that we really haven't mentioned in terms of the punt returns. Maybe Sion Vaki can get back there. Maybe, but we'll see. I think Dan Campbell's got a couple guys that he could put back there. I just don't think he's going to say nothing till game day, which is obvious because that's what Dan Campbell does. But the reality of the situation is they got a good team, so they'll be able to fill the void. Obviously, with the players and everything like that, you got guys like you only have 46 guys in a game day roster. That's the reason that they didn't do that. Um, so let's go to what Jared Goff said today. Jared Goff said today, we haven't won on Thanksgiving in a while, and that's something that we want to change. The Lions have lost the last 7 consecutive Thanksgiving games. So when you think about the Detroit Lions losing the last 7 consecutive Thanksgiving games, you think about 2 things, and it's really simple. 3 of those years, one of those years under Campbell, you were outmatched. You should have won the Buffalo game. Last year, you caught Thanksgiving and you were in a funk. But this year, I think Detroit's able to win. I think Detroit's the best team that's coming into Thanksgiving. Obviously, there's being at home is a very good thing for Detroit. You want to be at home. You don't want to be traveling on Thanksgiving. I heard TJ Lang talk about being the road team on Thanksgiving and how it's so tough to get on a jet and just travel over there. So that's an interesting point right there. But the reality of the situation is this: Chicago is going to come in here. This is going to be the toughest environment that they've played in all year long. I mean, they haven't played in Minnesota yet. They haven't played in Lambeau yet. They haven't played in Seattle yet. They played in Indy. They played in Houston, which is all right, but they haven't played in an environment like this. It's very underrated how much Detroit fans have an impact on the Detroit Lions and the games at Ford Field. You think about it like this: if you're an offense, if you're a team that's coming into Ford Field and you got to play on a silent count, all day is about to suck. All day is about to suck. It's just the reality of the situation. Like when you're on silent count, you're more prone to false starts, offsides, illegal shifts, illegal procedures, all of that. That's what happens when you are in a rough environment. And you see it all the time through college. You see it all the time with the Detroit Lions, with Ford Field, and what teams are not able to do at Ford Field that they would be able to do in some other places, especially since it's a dome. But you think about it like this: this is a good opportunity for Detroit to really exercise these demons on Thanksgiving, because this is the best defense that Detroit's ever had. Coming into Thanksgiving, the best overall team in my opinion. If the Lions have not allowed a TD in consecutive games for the first time since 1999, and when you haven't allowed a TD in consecutive games and you score 32 points per game, you are the most all-around team coming into Thanksgiving. And if I did the math and I did the research, I think this would be the most powerful team that Detroit's ever had coming into Thanksgiving. It's just the way it is. Because the reality of the situation is this: you go back over years and years and years. You go back to 2014, the year they went to Dallas and they got lost on that stupid pick up the flag game. And you watch that. They watch that team. That team struggled on defense. Cassius Vaughn, total liability. If you listen to the podcast before, I can't stand for Cassius Vaughn, because I remember Terrence Williams tearing him a new ass, and that sucked. But here's the reality of the situation: you're coming into this game, and this team is fully built to beat the shit out of teams. You got a good defense. You got an offense that can run them over. You got a team that's very, very, and every facet is very, very strong. And then you think about it like this: these teams have to come into Detroit and they have to deal with you guys. And I don't mean that seriously. I don't say that jokingly. They literally have to deal with you guys. All you guys that are in attendance at the Lions game, they have to deal with you. They have no choice. They have to go on a silent count. They hate silent count, like I said. They're dealing with communication issues, all of that, because they are dealing with you guys. So Lions fans, they make a huge impact on the game. And if Detroit gives them any, how do you want to say it? If they give them any added motivation, like a touchdown early on, boy, oh boy, that roof is going to blow off the place. and it's gonna be tough for Chicago to come back because you think about it as a rookie, as a quarterback like Caleb Williams. Um, he's 0-4 on the road. Like, let's go back to it. He's 0-4 on the road. They had 19 sacks, which is a communication issue. 4 of his 5 interceptions have been on the road. So when you think about all of that, it all is tied in together. And they're about to come into the roughest environment that they've ever played in. I don't see how any Detroit fan is saying, I'm not confident in this game tomorrow. Or I'm not confident in this game Thanksgiving because we're recording this on a Tuesday. There's no reason to not be confident in this team. Yes. Yes. They haven't won 7 straight. And Jared Goff said it. They're kind of sick of it. And Dan Campbell said it that his wife hopes they win because he's miserable on Thanksgiving. I'll just say this. If the Detroit Lions give any reason to the fans to just go bonkers, like a touchdown early on, an interception, Chicago's not winning the game. They're just not. It is what it is. You could look at the statistics. On the road, they're a totally different team. They barely average 200 yards barely average 200 yards. They struggle to throw the football on the road. They have communication issues galore. If Detroit jumps on them, it's over. And this is the best Detroit team in a long time. So I'm not really worried about the 7-game losing streak that the Detroit Lions have. Because to be honest, I think they're going to kick the shit out of the Bears on Thursday. That's my opinion. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on Thursday, but it's going to be very, very interesting. We have some comments. How many games do you see the Lions lose this year? I'm thinking possibly 2 more. Is that enough for home field advantage, especially if we end up tying the Eagles overall? So here's the thing. I know the Eagles have a really tough schedule coming up. It's very, very tough. It's a very tough schedule. If I go to the Lions, let me go. God, I can't pull it up. Let's see. All right. Where is the Eagles? I know the Eagles got a tough schedule coming up though. Let me pull this up. All right, so the Eagles this week they play the Baltimore Ravens. So that's going to be a tough game. They're going to Baltimore, that's going to be a really tough game. Obviously Saquon's playing at the top of his game, but you look at these next couple games, man, and it's pretty brutal. You look at the Steelers game, the Commanders game; those are 2 tough games. The Cowboys could potentially be fighting for a playoff spot. They got them on the week 17. They play the Giants and the Panthers in between. So realistically, if Detroit really wants to get home field advantage, which they should have to, because you don't want to go to Philly in the playoffs in the NFC Championship game. Realistically, if the Eagles don't lose against the Ravens, you're probably going to have to win out. And it is what it is, but you're gonna have to win out. Like, the Eagles don't look like they're stopping. Their schedule lightens up. Your schedule gets a little bit harder. You got 2 tough games coming out of Thanksgiving with the Bills and the Packers. And then you got to go on the road to Chicago. Then you got to go on the road to the 49ers. It's going to be a very, very tough stretch for the Detroit Lions. But they can get it done. They can definitely get it done. Leo says, Ken, it all depends on the Vikings and Green Bay does. No, not necessarily. It really depends on what the Eagles do, because I think that's who you're going to be fighting for number 1 overall seed for. Yeah, we need to say more about DC. I think that AG has been the difference. Look, I've been a staunch Aaron Glenn defender. I felt like there was years where he had nothing to work with. Like, Ben Johnson has like a plethora of talent to work with, but AG, he doesn't have nothing to work with in terms of that. So AG has done a damn good job as a DC, and I love AG. I think he's doing a great job. Uh, Jamal says Green Bay has 3 losses. We're not going to lose 3. You're right. I don't think they're going to lose 3. Ken Fisher says I figured the Lions would finish 14-3. That was the start of the season. My biggest fear is finger crossed was penalties and injuries would be the number one opponent. Let's hope the worst is behind us now when it comes to injuries. I don't think you can get much worse than the Detroit Lions have had at injuries. I really don't think that you can get any worse. Ken says the Lions have not forgotten what happened to them at Thanksgiving last year. They haven't won a Thanksgiving game in 6 or 8. It's been 7, in 7 years in a row. Our problem is that we are the team to beat, so it really is us versus everyone. And that's look. It's hard being the hunted. It's very hard being the hunted. A lot of people, a lot of teams, they really don't do well when they're hunted. The reality of the situation is you are the hunted. The reality of the situation is that Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson are the right people to be your coaches in this portion because they've been around winning organizations, and Dan Campbell can really help this team get better and not overlook things. Let's look at Motown Mitch. Motown Mitch. Chicago is not only going to lose, they're going to get blown out. That's what I'm talking about, Motown Mitch. That is what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. All right. So obviously, we know about this. 10-1 is the best start to any season in franchise history. 10 plus consecutive wins in consecutive seasons is a first time in franchise history. Bear with me, guys, because this is the longest effing thing I'll have to read all podcast long. And then I'll have my little monologue, and then I'll quit this because after I read this, you're gonna absolutely we're gonna have some. I might lose my voice if I stop for 1 minute. That's why. Here is what the Lions clinch a playoff berth with. So let me just get a drink of water, and then we'll go into it. But Detroit clinches a playoff berth with a Detroit win, plus a San Francisco loss or tie, Arizona loss or tie. That's Seattle loss, and Tampa Bay loss or tie. That's a 1. 2, Detroit win plus San Francisco loss or tie, Arizona loss, Seattle tie, Tampa Bay loss or tie. The third one, Detroit wins, San Francisco loss or tie, Arizona loss or tie, Seattle loss, Washington loss or tie, Atlanta loss. 4th, Detroit win plus San Francisco loss or tie plus Arizona loss or tie plus Seattle loss plus Washington loss plus Atlanta tie. Number 5, Detroit win plus San Francisco loss or plus Arizona loss plus Seattle tie plus Washington loss or tie plus Atlanta loss. You get the drift. These are additional scenarios in which Detroit can clinch a playoff spot with a tie and other outcomes involve the Lions clinching the strength of victory tiebreaker. I'll tell you what, when these tie-breaking scenarios come out, which I hope the Detroit Lions are never in the business of being in the tiebreaker. You could just start to feel it, man. You could start to feel it in your loins, and you're just like, all right. Let's get to some comments before we end the podcast. Dwayne says it's a rivalry game, so we can never take any team lightly at all, or one game at a time. Ken Fish says there's a big difference in this year's team, for example, was the Houston game where we made tremendous adjustments at halftime and have been able to come back and win the games by. Look, I've said it before, and I will say it again. This Lions team is much different than they've been in years past. Much different. And when you think about the Detroit Lions and what they've been able to do in terms of how they play, what did they do to win the games, they're bullying teams. They're absolutely disparating teams. And to be honest, if you're going to be completely honest with yourself, the Detroit Lions have been a phenomenal group together, and they've done a damn good job at it. So it's very, very interesting what the Detroit Lions are doing. They're coming to play Thanksgiving at home obviously. And there's a Chicago team that's coming here, and they're not good on the road. So they're 0-4 on the road, 19 sacks, turnovers galore. The Lions are 10.5-point favorites right now. The over under is 48.5. What you're looking at from the Vegas perspective is they don't think there's going to be a lot of scoring from the Chicago Bears, and they think Detroit's going to win by 10.5. So it's going to be a very interesting game for the Detroit Lions in terms of how do they get past this and how do they come out here with a win, because they've been playing pretty damn well, man, and they're a good team. They just have to keep piling on, man. And this is a good team that Detroit has. Chicago's coming here. They're a little bit licked and wounded. They're a young team. Caleb Williams, this is probably his first rendition in Detroit. It's going to be a very, very tough environment for the kid. A lot of people downplay the environment portion. They'll say, "Oh, this guy Caleb Williams, he's a generational talent." Guys, I hate to say this, he has not played like a generational talent. It's been more like Bo Nix is a generational talent right now. That's how good Bo Nix is playing. So is Jayden Daniels. But when you talk about this Lions team, they're easily eager to win this game, and they should win this game. They are the better team. They are the better group. They have the better players, and they're at home. I think that they have a very good shot at winning this game this week. So it'll be an interesting game in Detroit. We will do a pregame podcast at Three Kings Sports Cards and Collectibles on game day. You could if you wake up a little bit late, you could just rewatch it. But we will be down at Three Kings Sports Cards and Collectibles in Detroit. Make sure you stop by Three Kings Sports Cards and Collectibles. I know this is a grand open, but go to 1414 Griswold, Detroit, Michigan, which is right around the block from the Thanksgiving parade. We got a couple comments we'll finish up the stream with. Let's go. Awesome show. Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate that, Ken. Thank you very much. Motown Mitch says it's a rival game for sure, but these Bears are terrible and the Lions are amazing. They're hungry and the Lions win big. Dwayne says it's going to be loud at Ford Field. Defend the den. Let's go Lions. One pride. I agree with you guys. It's going to be a very, very tough place for Caleb Williams to play. They're going to have a tough time coming in here and playing the game. I'm telling you right now. And I do think the Detroit Lions are going to win this game. I think it's going to be pretty convincingly. So we will see you on Thursday morning. Obviously, if you are, get up and you want to watch some pregame podcasts, we'll have that ready to go. We'll be broadcasting on all the platforms. But thank you guys for listening. I appreciate all the viewership. We will see you in the next podcast. We talk more Detroit Lions football. We have a good season coming. There will be more podcasts coming in the December portion of the schedule. We're going to have to schedule them out, but it's going to be a very, very interesting part. But we're going to schedule them out, and we're going to see where we are at that point in time. But thanks for watching and listening on Spotify and Apple and iHeart, wherever the hell you get your podcasts. We appreciate it here on the Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Chap. We will see you in the next podcast. We talk more Detroit Lions football. And let's go Lions.